Welcome to Stop the Ride, a sober curious podcast for anyone whose relationship with drugs or alcohol has ever felt a little bit like a roller coaster. I'm your host, Drew Valentino. Sobriety can mean different things to different people, so each week I sit with a new guest to share their unique sober journey. So whether you're an addict or just somebody that likes to party, you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. My name is Drew Valentino, and today we are in the lovely city of Los Angeles, and I have a wonderful special guest with me today, Narcan queen and drag entertainer, Kochina.
Hi, Drew. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm really excited to share your story. How did you get the title Narcan queen?
So I am probably most known for throwing Narcan at drunk twinks.
Okay. Is that who needs it?
Yeah, more or less. So in 2021, I started handing out Narcan, which is the brand name is Narcan. The drug is called naloxone. It's an opioid antagonist, which means that it reverses an opioid overdose. And so, as I'm sure most of your viewers and listeners know, fentanyl is a highly potent opioid that's made its way into the greater drug supply. And so now you have people who, are out the club and they think they're taking one thing and they're actually consuming a different thing, right? Without their knowledge. And so I realized that my community in queer nightlife was not getting the information that they needed about how to reverse an overdose and with Narcan. And so I started just giving it away at my drag shows because I thought, I have a captive audience. I can train everybody how to use it and, just give it away and just, did it for a year before anyone noticed. And then I got picked up in the local CBS News station in the Bay Area, and they referred to me as the Narcan Queen. So since then, I've just taken the name and ran with it.
I love that. And thank you for doing that and doing that service for the community. I love that when I first asked you this question, but when we were first chatting about doing the podcast, I said it's self-proclaimed Narcan queen. And you're like, no. I didn't call myself that. They proclaimed that for me. So that's really awesome. I know what Narcan is. But I've never actually seen it. How is it administered?
So Narcan, there's the brand Narcan is a intranasal.
Oh, it's a brand.
So
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Ta-da! Not sponsored. But so it's basically just works like a nasal spray, exactly as you see. It goes all the way into the nostril, and you just press the plunger once, and it's a one-time use only thing, one dose, one.
So if they're unconscious, you spray it up their nose, and it's supposed to do its job.
It's supposed to do its job, right?
Gotcha.
Historically, naloxone has been administered as a intramuscular injection.
Okay.
So you can still, and a lot of people actually still prefer the little vial, right? That way you can kind of control how much you're giving somebody, and it's like cents to the dollar.
Gotcha.
So it's much more economical still to use the injectable version, but most people at the club are not injection drug users necessarily, and so needles maybe are intimidating for most people, and so this is much user friendly to like your average person.
That makes sense.
What I mean?
Actually, so I have a few questions. So one, what types of drugs or overdoses does this help with? I mean, I know you said fentanyl, but so that means that it could have been coke, heroin, anything, or
so it's an opioid antagonist, which means that it only works on opioids. So it doesn't work on any other class of drug.
I guess what I'm getting at is, how do you know that somebody needs Narcan?
So the things to look out for. So there's lots of course, different types of overdoses, but we just usually call them different things. Alcohol overdose is called what? Alcohol poisoning, right? In harm reduction world, we refer to like a meth overdose as overamping. When someone is like, really, they might get like really clammy skin. Their heart rate might, reach a dangerous rhythm, and they risk cardiac arrest, and every type of overdose has its own like symptoms and things that it does. But for the purposes of the conversation around like overdose prevention and Narcan and all that stuff, we typically refer to overdose as a opioid overdose specifically. which is really dangerous because what it does is just shuts down your respiratory system. So a person who's overdosing may turn either like a sheet white or blue or maybe an ashy gray, depending on their skin tone. And their lip color will be like a dark, either purple or blue. It looks like something out of a movie.
So you have this on hand, or somebody has this on hand, and this is, you would administer this when somebody is unconscious. Is that like it's like if somebody passes out or is on the floor, and and then you go to give them the Narcan? Is that?
Yeah. So the thing is an overdose can happen immediately or it can happen over the course of several hours. It really just depends on the person, right? But generally, I would advise against using Narcan if the person is breathing.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering. Is there circumstances where Narcan would be given where the person is still functioning up? You know what I mean? But they're just like, or convulsing maybe, or it's literally just they're unconscious.
If they're awake, they don't need it. If they're breathing, they don't need it.
See, I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah, totally. And that's the thing. I appreciate you asking. Yeah. And most people don't. Up until, gosh, like I feel like fentanyl really hit the mainstream in like 2017, 2018 maybe. I feel like before then, most people didn't have a reason to know how to use this. Most of this knowledge was mostly remained among heroin users and people who typically use opioids like on purpose,
on purpose, right?
And which they still do. There's lots of people who use fentanyl every day. But all that's to say is part of my mission has been to like just take what I've learned. I used to work in needle exchanges. I worked in the Tenderloin at a clinic, and I'm trying to just package what I learned and translate it for the drunk twinks at the club.
I see.
In a language that maybe they can understand. And being a drag queen does help. Because it's kind of one of those like, okay, look at me. I have 5 minutes of your attention. I don't have any more of their attention if I go over 5 minutes. And I lose them. So I gotta keep it quick. And
with TikTok these days, you got to probably have 90 seconds.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly.
And also Narcan and also test strips. That's something that also has been more mainstream, that there needs to be more awareness about using the test strips.
Yeah. That's test strips, I would say, are like, they were not like an end all be all.
Right.
It doesn't solve the problem, but it is one of many tools you can use.
Yeah, that's
and it's recommended, right?
Right.
Because fentanyl is so strong, and if somebody has a little baggie of coke or ketamine that they're going out with, and it's from maybe a new person, they don't know who the supplier was.
Right.
Then they could test one side of the bag, but all it takes is 2 grains of rice amount,
really?
For someone who doesn't have any tolerance to it, to overdose. And so the fentanyl could actually be on the other side of the bag. There's how can you know, right?
Right.
All we can do is our best, but there's many different tools we can use, and test strips are definitely one of them.
Yeah. So I want to hear more about your story. So what how old were you, and what was your experience when you first started to experiment with drugs or alcohol?
Well, I grew up in the North Bay.
Okay.
In the Bay Area. So Sonoma County area, like Santa Rosa, people know Santa Rosa. And it's kind of, I went to high school in a town called Windsor, which is really just like a rural suburb that's relatively conservative compared to the rest of the northern Bay Area. And there's just not a lot to do. I didn't really like it there. I wanted to live in the city. I wanted to be where other queer people were. I came out at a young age, and the support system I found, and many of whom I'm still friends with to this day, were like the other misfits and degenerates, and kids who wore black clothes and listened to scary music or whatever. You know what I mean? I just was the gay one.
Right.
But we loved nothing more than to skip school and smoke weed at the train tracks.
Right.
And what I should have been doing is I should have been taking dance and theater classes, and that would have really set me ahead of the game in my drag career. But so yeah, probably like early high school, like maybe my freshman year, sophomore year, I was using marijuana and cocaine and ecstasy. This is before Molly was really like the thing, so it was like mostly press pills. This is when press pills were big. So my friends and I would take press pills. sometimes at school. Or sell them, or and that was kind of the thing that I did. It was easier than shoulder tapping for alcohol. So,
Right.
yeah, that was, I would say.
Isn't that crazy that with drugs that are illegal, it's easier for a teenager to get drugs that are illegal, which are not regulated by the government because it's legal,
Right.
compared to alcohol, which is legal but very regulated because it's regulated by the government. So it's just interesting.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the irony too is that, like, I never felt like I had a quote unquote problem. I mean, it's like kind of subjective, right? With my use of drugs, like illicit substances, when I was a teenager. The thing that really got me was alcohol. And when I turned 20, and all through my 20s, I was mostly a drinker. I didn't really use drugs anymore as often as I did when I was in high school. So all that's to say, go figure, it's the legal drug that was my vice.
Right. Which is true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that time, when you were in your early 20s, did you have like abusive tendencies or do you think it was within the normal realm of any 21-year-old drinking?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to tell because I didn't think I was doing anything differently than anyone around me. And I think really what it was is that a lot of my friends at the time were also struggling with substance abuse,
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say what's normal when lots of 21-year-olds get super fucked up.
For the purpose of getting fucked up.
For the purposes of getting fucked up.
Getting wasted.
And before we have any established life, career, partner, dog, apartment, you know what I mean? So it's like a little bit, it's a little bit more, it's easier to be careless,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was just very normalized in my group of friends, and we all would go out together. It was a very social thing. I found other people who didn't really like living where we lived, and so we all commiserated. And it wasn't until I moved to San Francisco in 2014, I was 23, 24 years old. And then things kind of turned for me. It's not that I wasn't drinking heavily before, but now I had access to gay bars,
Yeah.
So I was going to like these dive bars, straight people and old drunk men and whatever, like in Sonoma County, because that's all there was for me. And yeah.
And so when you were in the bars in your 20s, you were drinking more heavily? Was there lots of issues that came with that, or were you blacking out? Or
yes, I was blacking out. I think that my theory is that a lot of people who drink, I don't like to use the term alcoholic, but I would describe to people that I struggled with alcohol use disorder. I just feel like it's kind of just like it doesn't have the same stigma attached to it for me.
Yeah.
Of course, people can use whatever terms to define themselves as they want. But for me, I was pretty high functioning.
Yeah, that's a common theme that I've heard from a lot of guests. Yeah.
A lot of other people, of course, I'd known drunks my whole life and who were not high functioning at all. And so, I always had jobs. For the most part, I had relationships and friendships and whatnot. It didn't like ruin my life necessarily, or I had jobs where, I could get away with just being hungover every day. I just was used to it, so much so to the point where like I don't know when it happened, but there was a point where I didn't know what it was like to function in the world without either being buzzed, drunk, or hungover.
Right. I think that's a very big common thing for people, is that even if it's not about being high, a lot of people just don't feel comfortable feeling sober.
Yeah.
Like just normal without any drugs,
Yeah. And there's lots of reasons for it. Every person in the world has trauma. That's like my theory, and so there's lots of reasons why people drink. There's lots of reasons why people use any drug. Sometimes it's even if that reason is just for fun.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Life is very hard. Life is complicated. Life
sucks.
Life can suck sometimes, and it's a lot easier said than done to just cope with everything completely sober. It's not an easy task. And in fact, that's why so many people struggle with sobriety if that's what their goal is, or don't even consider it. A lot of,
Right.
So life's hard.
You know that acronym that people use for sober?
I do not.
Son of a bitch, everything's real.
I've never heard that.
I thought it was brilliant.
I like it though.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's like, man, this is what it's like raw dog in the world.
Right.
Raw dog in life.
Raw dog in life.
Not the kind of raw dogging I usually prefer.
Right. Same. So, what would you say was your main drug of choice?
My main drug of choice was alcohol.
And how long have you been sober?
I have been abstinent from alcohol for 4 years. It'll be 5 years in a few months from now. So a little over 4.5 years.
Okay. And so for you, the issue is alcohol and you're abstinent from alcohol. Are you abstinent from everything, or do you do other stuff?
No, I'm not abstinent from everything, or I don't refer to myself as abstinent from everything or sober. I don't use the term sober to describe myself normally. But I love that, your podcast is called Sober Curious.
Sober Curious, yeah.
Because I'm definitely sober curious. I think my
Right.
sober curiosity is what led me to the decisions that I made to change my life. And, I use cannabis. I think of it as medicinal, but to be honest, it's even if I don't know if I could have quit drinking if I didn't have another thing. And I know that's not really like an encouraged way to look at anything.
It's
sobriety,
reality.
But for me, it's one of the. I mean, there's a lot to it, and I can get into the whole thing an hour later. But I didn't know that I had been self-medicating throughout my entire adulthood of using alcohol.
Self-medicating with
alcohol.
With alcohol. Okay, gotcha.
So I thought of myself as like a neurotypical, normal, average brain person, And when I quit drinking, I started having anxiety attacks. I would have these crying fits that would come out of nowhere. It turns out a lot of this stuff was like a withdrawal symptoms, of course, but I was quadruply diagnosed with mental health stuff within a year after quitting drinking. And I didn't think of myself as a person with anxiety, but I'm a person who has anxiety. Okay. And so all that's to say is that, my use of cannabis is I'm not an everyday, all day person. In fact, I could not do that.
Wait, everyday, all day person in terms of
my cannabis
using
use.
Cannabis every day. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's like a when I'm done with the things I need to do to be a responsible adult for the day. And I literally it's hard for me to relax. I'm an anxious person. I lay awake at nights, for hours and hours and hours. I have a hard time getting to sleep. Winding down is just like a problem for me. So sometimes just to get my mind to stop racing, just to kind of sink into my couch and just let myself just rot and turn my brain off,
Right.
Cannabis has been the least harmful thing that I have found compared to other options that might be available to me,
Yeah, I do know. I wanted this to be a sober, curious podcast, like you said, for a reason, and I say this quite a bit on the podcast. I never once had an issue with alcohol. I think, which is ironic because for most people, they only had an issue with alcohol.
Yeah,
I never had an issue with alcohol. And I feel like to this day, if I wanted to drink or incorporate alcohol into my life, I absolutely could without issue, because that was just not the issue for me. But I love being sober and because I don't like it. I'm not addicted to alcohol because I don't like it that much. And because I don't like it that much, it's just not part of my sober plan. There's no reason to have it. But I think that, that's kind of what this podcast is all about, is to talk about and think about and understand what's working for people and what's not. And that's different for every single person,
Truly.
So tell me more about what what was not working? So you were, what was the alcohol?
Maybe
And
like what was my breaking
yeah, like
point?
what
Was
led
the
up to you realizing that alcohol was not for you?
I think that a lot of people who struggle with alcohol use disorder have a moment where they're sitting in a bar and maybe they're by themselves and they're like nursing their drink of choice. For me, I liked whiskey. And, there was something in the back of my head that knew that I had a problem.
Mm,
You know, I knew deep down that there was going to have to be a day where I was going to have to decide to make a choice,
mm,
to choose to continue this and probably kill myself at some
mm,
point, or choose my life.
mm,
I knew it. I knew it for years, but I never talked about it with anybody. And when you're dealing with the rest of your life, especially when you're a young person, it just seems far away.
mm,
And then during the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown, I think was when I had no choice but to
mm,
face myself. I
mm.
didn't have a bar to go to.
Yeah.
I was drinking at home, and I just had a series of just life events that were hard for me.
Mm,
I adopted a dog, and then which he is still to this day like my light in the world.
mm-hmm.
I have a pit bull named Kitty.
Oh.
Adopt, don't shop. Get your pit bull, from the pound. And he, because of I was using substances while I was with him, and I'd take him to friends' houses. There was a incident where he bit my friend.
Okay.
And it was like not an aggression. It was like a play thing, but it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
He injured my friend, and part of it was because I wasn't paying enough attention to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was using.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
okay.
and I didn't know that like dogs can smell the level of substance in your blood.
Oh, really?
You
I mean,
know,
I'm not surprised by that at all.
so he now I know this about my dog. He's sensitive to people who are inebriated, and so
Mm.
he doesn't like it.
That's
He doesn't
that's
like it when I'm drunk. He
that's
doesn't like it when I'm
fascinating.
fucked up, and so
Yeah.
or when other people are. And like I was having like this situationship thing that just like didn't work out, and I was unemployed at the time, and just
Mm.
like it was just like the perfect storm of things.
Yeah.
And I struggled with depression, and
Mm-hmm.
so it just kind of sent me on this downward spiral. And um, I was like, I had this moment where I was like, I think it might be time,
Mm.
because I'm solely using alcohol as to treat something.
Mm.
I'm depressed and I'm drinking.
The pandemic very was a big monumental moment for many people. It was either it people either sunk or float. Like people were under a lot of stress and depression and lockdown, connections cut off. So many people turned to drugs,
Isolation.
totally. And lots of people, I know lots of people that their drug use just skyrocketed during that,
Right.
to the point where even when it was over, it was like damaging that for them permanently. And but I also know a lot of people that went through that and came out the other side sober or in a much better place because they addressed what was happening. Some people needed it. Like, do you think you would have been that you would have gave up alcohol if it wasn't for the pandemic?
I don't know.
Right.
That's what scares me, to be honest. I'm like, I actually think that the lockdown saved me. I had
think
no
a lot
choice
I think a lot of people feel that way.
And so about a year into the lockdown situation, some friends of mine decided to take a sober February.
Mm-hmm.
Sober February because it's the shortest month.
Mm-hmm. Wait, that's hilarious.
And so I decided to give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
I'd had periods, over the years where I would stop drinking for like a couple weeks, maybe as long as 2 weeks is the longest I'd ever gone.
Yeah.
And like
I think
that's
probably more than what most people do. Yeah.
And it's because I didn't think I actually really had a problem. Like I didn't think much of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I think I'm gonna just do this, and maybe when I'm clear-minded, it'll help me address the parts of my life that are clearly not working out for me right now. You know?
And during this time, did you use cannabis still, or this was just alcohol?
Yeah, I've been consistently using
Okay.
cannabis. And that month was one of the hardest months of my life. And I was in denial, not just about that, being drunk every day was a problem, but that I was dependent on it. So I exhibited what I later learned were withdrawal symptoms, but I didn't think of it like that, but I just was more depressed than ever. I was like fantasizing about, jumping off the bridge, and I was able to fortunately find a therapist and work through a lot of my issues there.
Was there a specific moment that this all came to a head during the pandemic that you realized like this is a problem and I need to change it?
It was that everything around me in my life just felt miserable, and that alcohol is a depressant and that it's probably not helping. Right.
But
I didn't know what
when you realized that, was there one particular bad night or day or something, or it was just kind of collectively?
It was a
little
collective
by little
culmination.
Yeah,
It was just kind of a
that makes
slow
sense.
roll of realizing that there's a lot of things in my life, and I think this is true for a lot of people who are addicted to drugs and other substances. There's not a lot in life that it feels like we can control, right? And so something that we can control sometimes is what we consume. At the time in my life, I felt like there was a lot of things beyond my control. What was in my control that could potentially improve my life was quitting drinking. And like I'd mentioned before, deep down I knew that I was going to have to make this decision someday,
And when you made this decision, were you able to stop on your own? Because some people can, some people can't.
No. I mean, in hindsight, I avoided the rooms. I didn't engage in 12-step, but actually I think that I should have. If I could go back and change anything, because I think I needed the connection.
But you were able to stop without.
I was able to stop. Yeah.
Because
So just going back to that sober February, I had only committed to 1 month. And then my plan was just see if I can make it through the month. And if I can make it through the month, maybe I'll keep going.
Right.
And my goal was not to just quit forever. I was just going to see what I could do. I did take like a 1 day at a time mentality or approach to it. But then as the weeks drew on, I realized that if I went back now, it would be really hard for me to stop. It would be really hard for me to quit again. So I was like, I'm on a roll. I really should continue. So I did have some motivation.
Like a little fear.
I knew I was afraid that if I had dipped my toe back in at all, even had one small drink, I was afraid that it would be even harder to pull myself out of it a second time.
And I have been in the recovery community since I was 21 years old. Most people in that situation end up way worse. Like when they dip their toe in, and then there's just all this pent up like desire that they end up just going off the deep end way harder than they did originally.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about the idea of like you have to make people miss you, if you want to be celebrated in certain spaces or at the club. You can't be too familiar.
So not associated with addiction. You're just saying in general.
But the allegory is that like the connection I'm making is, I think for some people they have to spend some time away to remember what they loved about the drug that they were using.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's true for everybody, but I feel like that could be true for me.
Wait, you're saying spend some time away from the drug to help you remember how much you like the drug?
Yeah.
Why is that a good thing?
It's not a good thing.
Oh,
I'm saying, but I think it's a reason. I think that explains why sometimes people
go
like
off the
you're
deep
saying
end.
Go off the deep end even worse than they were before, because then they remember, like now I'm horny and all I can think about is using this drug that made me have really great sex or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean.
No, I totally understand. So you did not do or the 12 steps or anything. You were able to do this. Was it challenging, or were there any setbacks, or? or were you able to do it? And how'd that go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually talk about it that much. But it was, I mean, it was the hardest year of my life.
Yeah.
That first year was rough. And, 6 months in, I didn't feel celebratory. I felt like I felt worse.
Really?
I felt like,
That's got to be really
well,
hard.
3 months in is really, I felt worse. 6 months, I feel like was the time when I remember feeling like, okay, I feel like maybe I'm coming, like it's feeling better, but for me, it got worse before it got better. And so then I was like I mentioned, I was incredibly depressed because I was like, this was supposed to help me. I made a hard choice. And instead of feeling better about my decision that I know was the right one, I feel horrible.
And do you know why you felt horrible? Like looking back, do you know why?
Yeah, I mean, I was withdrawing.
Like chemically, physically? And did you not know that at the time?
No, because it didn't look like how I thought it was going to look like for people.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was like many queer people. I thought I was the exception, right? I'm like, oh, I'm not addicted. I can quit whenever I want, even though when I did, it was really hard, right? And just because I wasn't, didn't have seizures, didn't have hospital visits. I did have the shakes a little bit, but it wasn't like how you might see depicted,
right, in movies,
in some stereotypical
yeah.
way. But what happened to me, it was a psychotic thing. Like it was a psychosis. I had like breaks from reality. Like I'm not even joking. And I had through therapy, I had my therapist explain to me. I would tell him what I was experiencing, and he would help me like, well, what you're experiencing is an anxiety attack. And I said, no, not me. That's not a problem. Impossible. I have, it must be something else.
Right.
But a lot of like uncontrollable emotions, I would just have these mood swings that were really crazy. I would self-isolate or have outbursts in front of people that was really embarrassing. And I felt like I was not in control of my behavior. I felt like I was not in control of my emotions.
During the withdrawing part.
During those like several months after I quit drinking, which made me depressed about myself.
Yeah.
And I think that if it weren't for my dog, I would have gone back to. I don't know if I would have made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then after the 6-month mark, when things started to look up, what was that like? I mean, after 6 months, everything started to come together.
It was a slow roll up, I would say I didn't feel right until a full year after I quit drinking.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which sucked because I was like, man, I'm trying to be motivated right now, but it's really hard. I'm not feeling the motivation. But it's because I had to work out I no longer was self-medicating. So my anxiety, my depression, my ADHD, my whatever, all these things commonly go together. I have PTSD as well. Like I didn't have anything managing my mental health any longer. And so then I was just raw dogging it. And for me, I'm not mentally well enough
to just raw dog
raw dog it. Some people are, and I'm happy for them. But I need to be on medication, is what I learned.
So were you, if you don't mind me asking, so at some point after you gave up alcohol, you were seeing were you seeing a therapist the whole time, or just only after?
I had a therapist before the pandemic, and I was able to see him at like the sliding scale queer like clinic in San Francisco called Queer Life Space, which you should support. They're a nonprofit. And I stopped seeing him. I mostly talked to him about work stuff and boys. and then during the first month where I stopped drinking, I was like, oh, I was having daily suicidal thoughts. I knew that it wasn't right. And I was like, I need to talk to somebody about this.
Yeah.
And so I was able to re-engage with that same therapist that I'd had before, so I didn't have to start from square one, and we picked up where we left off. And so we saw each other weekly for about a year.
And did you since then started taking some type of medication to help manage some of these things?
Yeah, through his help, I was able to engage in I found a psychiatrist. I got a job during this time while I was recovering, and through insurance, I was able to find a psychiatrist to prescribe me the medications that we tried cocktails of stuff. Certain things worked for me, other things didn't. Now I feel like it took me a while to find equilibrium, but now that I'm experiencing life the way that I feel like I can do things, I can see tasks to completion. I'm not like depressed every single day. It's much more manageable. My life feels manageable. I feel like I'm in control of my psyche.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. And I think that's so important to hit on the medication thing. Because for me, so I've always, since I was younger, have had really bad ADHD. I mean, undiagnosed, but my whole family is like, oh my God. Like
Right.
I would just walk out in my teens and leave the house with the front door just open, not unlocked, just completely open. And my parents would be like I would do stuff like that all the time. My mind was wandering. And so in my adulthood, I just maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I finally started to go to get evaluated, not for ADHD exactly, but just, well, kind of, but just basically we were looking at maybe a medication that could help because I'm just very like spacey and forgetful. And they put me on Wellbutrin, which is an antidepressant that can be used to help with ADHD. They actually were going to prescribe me Adderall, and I was like, that's not a good idea because I'm an addict.
I know your history. I've done some research. Yes. Yeah. It sounds like that was the thing you struggled with.
Right. Yeah. I've struggled with Adderall.
Totally.
So we tried Wellbutrin, which is a non-stimulant assistant for that either like depression.
I'm on it.
Oh, are you? Okay. Yeah. I love it is my point.
Yeah.
And how long have you been on it? It's great.
Yeah.
How long have you been on? You've been on it for?
Yeah, it's been 4 years.
Yeah, probably same, maybe 4 or 5 years. But what I thought was interesting about that is I definitely noticed a difference after a few months that I just had a lot more, and this was before I got sober the second time. It's funny because I think I was blaming my life falling apart on ADHD when in reality I was fucking going to every circuit party and doing Molly every 2 weeks. So that was probably the problem. But,
in such cases.
Right. But so when I started taking Wellbutrin, I felt a clarity in my brain and a motivation that was helping me. Honestly, that helped me achieve sobriety because I was so motivated, and that was something that like all of a sudden it became important to me to stay on track. So I remember that I get sober, coincidentally, like separate from that, I get sober after 2 years of taking Wellbutrin. Maybe 6 months, 8 months into my sobriety, I start thinking to myself, well, my brain is pretty good right now. Maybe I don't need this. And I just like this idea of just being abstinent from all drugs, not just the illicit ones, but sleep medicine and Adderall or anything. And I had this idea to try to come off of Wellbutrin. But the thing is, I am on the starting dose, I think is 150 milligrams, and I'm on 300. So I figured whether I come off or not, either way, I'm going to drop from 300. I'm just going to start taking 150. I never told my doctor about it. I just went down 150 thinking that was the steps. And man, my life fell apart.
Really?
Not some crazy, terrible way, but just felt like I could not stay organized. I like was behind at work. I felt overwhelmed. I remember having like a Monday off from a holiday and having a whole 3-day weekend where I was like ready to like get stuff done, and I just couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then I went to the doctor. I don't know if I was suspicious of the fact that I don't think I made the connection yet that I reduced my dose, but I told my doctor, and they said, this is what I'm realizing what's happening. He's like, you said that you originally went to get this medication, not for depression, but because of ADHD. And then now you reduce your dose and now your life is in shambles. It sounds like the drug was working and now it relieved those symptoms, and now you stop taking it and now it's not addressing those symptoms, and now you're just experiencing ADHD. And I was like, oh, and he was like, there's nothing wrong or harmful or bad about being on Wellbutrin if for the rest of your life if you're liking it. And then it just clicked for me, you know what I mean? And I think that is super important because for me, Wellbutrin did have a role in my ability to stay sober. And I can imagine for like your story or anybody similar that if the issue is not ADHD, but clinical depression, I mean, hello, you that's like way more important when it comes to sobriety.
So yeah, I mean, and that I think gets into like the harm reduction aspect of this, where it's like if you literally reducing harm. You know, if you have a substance that you're struggling with, you know, sometimes what it takes is for you to look at everything and say, okay, well, I find that if I take this, my life falls apart, and if I take this, it is a step down from but it still is, I'm still able to like cope with the world, but my life isn't falling apart the way that it was when I was on this substance. And so for me, I replaced my alcohol use with cannabis and sugar. I was addicted to sugar, and I just let myself be addicted to sugar. I knew it because, and this often happens with people who quit drinking, because there's so much sugar in alcohol, right? And
Wait,
so
what often happens?
that they just eat a shit ton of ice cream.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
really?
So I didn't like lose any weight. Like sometimes people when they quit drinking, they're bloated, and then that did not happen to me.
Think about people that quit smoking tend to gain a lot of weight.
And then this is the example I'm providing about. I knew that I was replacing one thing for another, but then after like a year and a half or something, maybe 2 years almost, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to now eliminate this thing that's also not good for me. I know that eating a pint of ice cream every day is not good for me, right? But if it kept me away from drinking when I needed it to. And then I was able to quit. To change my relationship to sugar. I like quit, consuming sugar. I dropped like 20 pounds in like 6 weeks. It was crazy.
Wow. That is crazy.
And now my relationship with sugar is different. I'm still addicted to it, but I eat a lot of fruit.
Right. Oh, that's good. That's good.
So, sometimes for some people, trading it for a less harmful thing might be if that's what keeps you away from the most harmful thing, that might just have to be what it is. Right?
I mean, totally. I mean, that's for many people cannot go from being addicted to drugs to being entirely 100% sober and abstinent from everything. So like, I remember when there was a period of time where I was really trying to stay off of heroin, and I started smoking weed, and I was smoking weed every day for a while. And then eventually I gave up weed, and then I gave up cigarettes, and it was like, I got there. But to go from shooting heroin to 100% sober is very difficult. And especially I was a teenager, so it's just like, I'm all for people assessing and doing what they need to do to get there.
And you were reducing your harm. You were doing harm reduction, and you didn't even know it.
Right. Yeah.
People have been doing harm reduction for ever and ever and ever, as long as there's been drugs.
Now I have a question for sober. So AA sober, we have AA meetings. Is there some type of program or meetings or anything specific to harm reduction?
Sometimes there's like peer-led groups, like there's support groups. There's lots of harm reduction support groups out there, I'm sure, but there's not like a system where it's like a unified, like where there's chapters in the same way.
Right? I feel like that would be great.
There's a thing called Smart Recovery that some people use, but it's not, again, it's like not structured like AA is. And, I acknowledge a lot of people need that structure. It's the structure. It's the habit, of going to your meeting every day or every week. It's sitting in a circle and talking to each other. It's that communication around it that is what keeps people away from their substance of choice.
Yeah.
And so I think that structure is really valuable. And I think actually I needed that, because I was very isolated when I was, when I quit. But, some of the people who were the most helpful for me during my early recovery were other drug users, who had gone back and forth with their sobriety and stuff, but because they knew how it went, I felt like I was able to rely on them for like very frank support. They weren't trying to sugarcoat it with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of my closest friends who helped me, maybe the most during my early recovery, ended up, passing away from an opioid overdose less than 2 years later. And
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why I'm doing this whole Narcan thing.
Right.
Because I don't want that to happen to people.
So when you say you're doing this whole Narcan thing, what is it? Are you doing like events and stuff, or you're just making a point to always hand it out and do a segment on it when you're doing a show? Or
So I used to co-host a drag show called Princess
okay.
In San Francisco. And I left after 5 years earlier this year. But it was a weekly Saturday night show at Oasis, which was previously owned by Kochina, a very famous drag queen. And that was where I did the project. Sometimes I get asked to do, presentations elsewhere, but really like as a consistent weekly thing, I just like every Saturday night after intermission, I would take 5 minutes to say, this is how to reverse an overdose. Do you want some Narcan? Here you go. And then we'd resume the show, that's what it looked like. And just after years of that, this is how I got the reputation that I now have. But since then, I've been able to it's opened possibilities for me that I wasn't necessarily looking for. A little over a year ago, I went to the White House.
Oh, really?
I was invited to the White House as part of the Biden's outgoing administration.
Wow.
They had an overdose awareness event. And so the city and county of San Francisco was invited because of their work with me.
That's so cool.
And so I went to the White House in full drag.
And really? And what? So
yeah,
what did
navy
you?
Blue
Did
suit
you?
And
You have to get up in front of people and demonstrate?
I just went to.
Or it was just you were just at it.
I went to attend. The representative who was speaking was from the San Francisco Entertainment Commission. But he was describing a project that he was working with me on. I was already doing it.
Yeah.
And so I just partnered with them later.
I love that.
We put out information. We did a video like about how to use fentanyl test strips, how to use Narcan for people in nightlife when I was in drag. And I'm like, here it is. This is how to do it. Here's a dummy, sponsored by the city and county of San Francisco. I went to I've spoken on panels at, harm reduction conferences. I went to the International Harm Reduction Conference in Bogota, Colombia earlier this year as a communications liaison. I just went representing myself, and I went and drag every day and just interviewed people and just kind of I'm the Narcan queen.
That's really cool.
But the people who I really look up to are the harm reduction community. These are people who were working in needle exchanges in the 90s, 2000s, people who, a lot of the things that are central to harm reduction history, it's a lot of like, do something illegal and ask for permission later, because our objective is to save our community. People are dying. And so I don't care if, you need a doctor's prescription to distribute naloxone. I'm going to just steal a bunch of naloxone and distribute.
Save lives.
And do it. And then over time, they found that like it was proven to work. So harm reduction interventions have been proven to work so many times. There's now 30 years of evidence and research. And, I was asked recently what my opinions were about, the current mayor of San Francisco, about, his policy on drug users and harm reduction. I said, well, you don't need my opinion. There's 30 years of research that prove that when you give sterile syringes to injection drug users, you see higher successes in recovery rates. You see cleaner streets. You see, because when people know that there's someone that cares about them and there's somewhere that they can go and access resources and prevent communicable diseases, HIV, hepatitis C was huge among the injection drug user community. And when you have more syringe access sites where they can get sterile syringes and they don't have to share the same one, then you're going to see HIV cases go down. Like it's just proven to work. It's a public health fact, right? And so that's how I try to look at it. You can have opinions one way or the other, but that's the matter of the fact.
And it's so sad how many people just could not even begin to comprehend why that is a good thing. Like there's so many ignorant people that would think like, oh, well, why would you support these drug addicts? It's just not that simple.
And
It's just not that simple.
If you were to have the point of view where you want people addicted to heroin or now fentanyl to stop using it, the best route of success for them is going to be safe consumption sites. Where they're not going to overdose and die,
right.
Or they can get their drugs checked to make sure that there's not adulterants in it that shouldn't be in it. There's places where they can get sterile supplies, like I said, and you see people engage in recovery at a higher rate than if you just leave them to their devices or put them in jail. In fact, you see worse outcomes. More people overdose. You see more fatal overdoses among people who were recently incarcerated because they go back to they dry out in jail. They go back to using the same amount they were used to using before. Their tolerance has changed. And so then they overdose and potentially die. And it's because of the jail experience. It's not, they didn't learn a lesson.
Right.
So compassionate care is always the way,
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who are my mentors who are harm reduction heroes who are also in the rooms. They are AA recovery people. Harm reduction is not one or the other. You're either abstinent or you're either
it's a spectrum.
Whatever. It's a spectrum. Abstinence is on one end of the spectrum. What I like to call chaotic drug use is on the other end.
That's a good way to put it.
Because I don't like to have the stigma to it, because most people are somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And for me, abstinence from alcohol is the thing that works. And this is just to tie a bow on it back to my own experiences. I heard you say on a recent episode that, if you were to go back to drinking, occasionally or socially, that you think you'd probably be fine because that was not your drug of choice, right?
Right.
That wasn't what you struggled. And actually, I had an incident where I was accidentally served alcohol a year ago.
Like by accident, you didn't know, kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And the person, I was at Burning Man, long story. And I felt it. I felt that familiar, my face got warm. It tightened up, like what happens after you do a shot, I was like, oh, and I start to feel it in my brain. I was like, oh my God, like I'm buzzed. And my instinct wasn't to jump over the counter and drink all their alcohol.
Right.
I knew what was happening and I was like, oh, I can't. Or I was like, can you try this? And my friend was like, and I was like, okay, I think it has booze in it. And I knew better than to go back. I just switched it for soda and then I was fine. And I know that I'd probably be fine. But here's the thing. And this is what harm reduction is all about. It's about evidence-informed solutions. If I went back to drinking today casually, I've done a lot of the psychological work on myself that I needed to do that drinking was preventing me from doing. And I'm in a place where I feel like I maybe could have a beer now and then. And I still crave it. But the evidence of my life shows that every area of my whole world improved when I stopped drinking.
Right.
That is the only thing I have as evidence. That is the fact.
Yeah.
Everything got better. So it would behoove me to look at the evidence and say to myself, maybe the evidence of me drinking was bad.
Right.
It was bad outcomes. So maybe I'll continue on that track. That's the motivation that I have. You just look at it like you're doing research on yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so true. And I also feel like when I'm sober, what's interesting about being sober is, as an addict, is you get, let's say, 5% better, but at every single aspect of your life. So it's like when your mental health is 5% better and your wallet's 5% better and your relationships are 5% better and your
I saved
mood
so
is
much
5%,
money. I paid off all my debt because I wasn't buying alcohol.
Right. And it's like, but all these things add up and it's just like just such a better quality of life that's so much more than 5%,
And so for anyone struggling with substances, whether they're looking to either scale back their use or quit entirely, that's the first thing I'll say. I'm like, is your life easier to manage, or is everything better when you're not doing this? Look at that and run with it.
Right. And also what you said, and a lot of people have said, doing like a trial period or like a dry January or February if you don't want to do all 30.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Better is better.
There's so much to learn from that because I'd say a good third or more of my guests on this podcast got sober starting with a dry something that they didn't intend, and then all of a sudden now they're sober for 3 years or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a great test because if there's people that cannot do it, and then it's just like, if you can't make it 30 days, there's no shame in that, but then you need to acknowledge, like, oh wow, that says something that I might need help. I might have a problem because I can't even do it on my own. And if you can do it, which probably on your own without or something, which probably represents maybe 40 to 50% of the guests I've had on this podcast, then it's like, that's a miraculous tool to know that you can do it, and to assess. And it's like, if you realize that your mental health and all these things in your life are just so much better in that 30 days or 3 months or whatever it was, and you're capable of doing it on your own, why not? You know what I mean? So
the National Harm Reduction Coalition defines harm reduction as a set of practical strategies designed to improve outcomes related to drug use, you know, or reduce the negative outcomes associated with drug use. So, you know, I think that it's worth mentioning that stigma and shame are like the biggest killers of people who are addicted to substances, you know?
Yeah.
Either they don't want to acknowledge it or tell people that they're addicted to drugs, they're using alone. Like, it's really what it is it's about freeing yourself from the stigma and shame and guilt of using substances. Relapse is a common component of recovery for a lot of people. And I like to think of it as like a spiral upward rather than a spectrum of like you are good or bad. Right. You're either sober or you break it. Right?
Yeah.
When you are spiraling upward, you know, in terms of your abstinence, and then maybe you have a hiccup or you go back to using, it's you still are building on experiences that you had before of, you know, knowing that because you said yourself you had done it this twice in your life so far, right?
Yep.
And so I think that, like, don't be discouraged if you have a setback. You're still in control of your future. That's the thing you can control, and you're not a worse person because you went back to using.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And also, and I've talked about this with my therapist, being sober for X amount of months and then fucking up doesn't, and a relapse doesn't undo the sober time you had. That's not AA's opinion,
totally,
but that is my opinion.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, you still did the work, and now you have that as a reference to do it again.
Yeah, like that one fuck up that I had. You know, if I was in the rooms, maybe I would consider that to be starting my clock again from zero,
right?
Because I accidentally was served a drink. You know, really, I look at it as like I had one day of something that accidentally happened that I came out on the other side just fine. Out of over 1,000 days, pretty good,
right? Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask. There was one more thing I want to ask about the Narcan. Where can people get Narcan?
That's a great question. So there are directories that you can look up depending on where you are. Like there's the National Harm Reduction Coalition has like a heat map of syringe access sites mostly. But any harm reduction site will also dispense naloxone. You can if you're in California, it's pretty easy to get naloxone, especially in major cities. But there's not really like a unifying, like a place where everyone is going to get it. Now, there are buyers clubs where, you know, in California, there's the California Clearinghouse. And so this is the California Department of Public Health partners with the North American Syringe Exchange Network, or NASN, to get naloxone dispensed for free, you know, statewide with participating harm reduction programs, right? There's Next Distro, that's NEXT, where it's a mail-based distributor. So if you live like in an area where it's like really hard to get, you can have it mailed to you.
Oh, okay.
You know, the resources now are far better than what they were 10 years ago.
A quick Google search, anybody looking for it could figure it out.
And the last thing that I'll say is that I actually recently started a collaboration with the North American Syringe Exchange Network, or
Oh,
NASIN.
awesome.
NASIN operates the longest running continuously operating syringe exchange site in North America,
Oh,
which is
that's
Tacoma Needle
awesome.
Exchange, over 30 years. And they are a buyer's club. So you can look up on their website where, based on where you are, where you can find it. And I actually have something for you.
Oh,
you didn't ask for it, but I'm gonna give you my card.
thank you.
So we launched, as part of this collab, we have this little info card on like how to respond to an overdose with Narcan.
Oh,
so you can keep it in your wallet.
Thank
if
you.
you like are in an emergency and you're like, oh my god, what do you even do? You just pull
Yeah.
it out and it's right there. Right?
I love that. Maybe we could put it on the website or
But
something.
on the other side of it, there's a QR code that's like, scan this and you to find Narcan in your area.
Oh, that's really awesome.
And
I
so that's
appreciate
part
that.
of this is because I was finding that, again, my community of queer people, especially in nightlife, in the adult industry, and the drag community, like these resources are not easy to find.
Yeah,
totally. So I'm trying to like address that, like queer people want to do things to help their communities, you know?
Yeah.
And so we've also launched, as part of this collaboration, this thing called Kochina's List, which is, it's at nasin.org/Kochina-rude. And it's a directory ranging from where to get HRT, where to get sterile syringes for injecting hormones, mental health therapy, resources for party and play for people who use meth, how to properly dose GHB, what drugs work together and which don't,
right?
You know, which ones are dangerous to do together.
That chart.
Yeah, totally.
That
so
didn't even surface until maybe 5 years ago. We needed that 20 years ago or more.
Totally. And so I wanted it to be like a one-stop shop for the queer community about harm reduction stuff, because queer people use drugs in specific ways, you know?
Right.
So the party and play conversation, you can't really have it in the same way with straight people.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a gay guy thing.
I know. It is very specific.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you being here and sharing your story. Where can people find you? And do you have anything else to plug?
I can be found at Kochina-rude, one word, on all social media. I have a domain, kochinarude.net, where you can, it's just where I dump everything. So you can find all the articles that, you know, I've been interviewed in as part of my harm reduction work. And any projects that I have coming up, tickets to local events in the Bay Area. I have a podcast actually myself called Diva Dudes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
With my friend Godzilla Princess. And this is, we started this because everything feels so serious and we wanted something fun to do. That wasn't, you know, just for us, you know?
Yeah, that's fun.
And like I mentioned as well, nasin.org/Kochina-rude. You can find all the stuff. We're going to be adding stuff to it. So if you think something's missing, please let me know and I want to work on it with you.
Okay, great. Sweet. Well, thanks again. You can find me and all my links at drewvalentino.com and all the episodes at what is this called? StopTheRidePodcast.com.
Ta-da!
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.